Hey y'all, welcome back to Alu Inastaria. I'm the Worldbuilding Shrimp. In this series called Worldbuilding Drafts, I'll be exploring some topics I enjoy, but haven't fully realized yet. I hope you enjoy this brainstorming process and maybe get inspired for your own draft concepts. To start with, let's go with the big one. Fairies. Man, I've had fairies in my world for so long. One night, my eyes flashed open from almost asleep, and I grabbed my phone and wrote down, what if fairies who lost their wings changed into a completely different race? That was the beginning to the huge rabbit hole of what I wanted fairies to be. What I wanted the resulting race to be after their wing loss. Would it be a magical difference or a physical difference? How would it affect their genetics? I decided pretty early on that the resulting race, at that time called Faeries, would be a physically, magically, and genetically distinct race. If a fairy lost their wings, the core source of their magic, they would metamorphosis into the Faeries, like a reverse butterfly to caterpillar. A lot of fairies in fantasy settings have some ties to insects, and I like that, so I incorporated it where I could. Oh, also the fair, shortened from fairies, spelled F-A-E-R, were human-sized, not tiny sprites. Because I wanted them to be more bug-related, I had to consider wingless insects as well. And that meant I shouldn't use wings themselves as a magic core, or I'd be excluding all the bugs that were flightless. I considered just excluding them, but since wings were the basis of magic, I didn't want the grounded fairies to be inherently lacking in magical power. Instead, I developed a magic core, some orb-like thing under the skin in the middle of their back. Apparently the spine doesn't exist in my brain, because with how I was imagining it, that definitely wouldn't fit smack dab in the middle. Who needs an uninterrupted spine? It can't be that important. It doesn't matter, I can't visualize it anyways. So the basis of my fantasy fairy race was, if a fair lost their core, they'd transform into a Faeries. And for many reasons, the fairies didn't like that. Most of them would literally prefer death. Fairies' magic is lodged in their core. Therefore, losing the core meant losing your magic. Losing the core also meant losing your wings, if you had them. No more flying made it very difficult to navigate a society completely focused around flight. Ants stayed on the ground, I guess. Or climbed? I don't know. In the beginning of my drafting, Faeries were just banished. Faeries genetics are dominant. A fairy and Faeries union would only birth Faeries, so if you kept them around and integrated them into society, there'd eventually be no fairies. But Faeries can become fairies again if they steal someone else's core and put it into their body. In fact, even later generations of Faeries could turn into fairies if they got their hands on a core. Faeries are a predator of fairies, and they're the main reason that fairies fear for their cores. The other threats to fairies is that their core can be used as a magical object, containing the affinities the fairy held in their life. Maybe some other benefits like extra endearment to magic or something. In the original draft, a fairy's wings were also a prized alchemical ingredient. But now I'm not sure if you could tangibly even harvest a fairy wing. I don't know if it's a physical thing on their body or just an energy manifestation. Faeries are designed to be hunters of fair. Their main purpose of this new form was designed to be able to retrieve a new core. Designed for conflict and negative essences. Tracking magic, concealment magic, venom, claws, and fangs. Therefore, in later drafts, fairies wouldn't banish Faeries. They'd kill them. No mercy for friends, family, partners. It was simply too dangerous to be merciful. Once a fairy loses their core, there is a short buffer time before they enter a magical cocoon for their metamorphosis. So they'd say their goodbyes and then be executed. And likely willingly. But there are always those who'd rather live, who'd rather struggle and choose to hunt for the chance to regain their life, their body, their magic back. Or just run, get out of fair territory and never look back. As time went on with this concept, I kept pushing the fair further and further away from a human-based race. I wanted the transformation from fairy to Faeries to be this drastic, horrific thing for the fairies. The physical characteristics that fairies can have are like 6 limbs, long, spindly fingers, more than 2 eyes, elongated legs, wings, antennae, fuzzy or furry skin, exoskeletons, spikes, horns, skin that can be whatever color they desire, skin that glows with an internal light. Their mouths may open on multiple hinges. Meanwhile, the Faeries have a far more human body. 4 limbs, 2 eyes, no antenna, short legs, no wings, no natural armor. Their skin is dark to help them blend into the shadows, though it does vary in natural hues like blue, green, and brown. Their fingers, now much shorter, end in long, tough claws. Their mouths restructured, now featuring 2 retractable fangs that settle on the top of their palate. Venom now flows from these inbuilt weapons. From an outside perspective, these changes bring them much closer to resembling humanity, but this humanity is what's so foreign to the fair. For the Thasier, I wanted the loss to feel incredibly tragic, losing so much of what you identified as yourself. Your new body would be completely abnormal. I pushed the concept whenever I had a new idea. Every time I did that, I would tell my husband, Lisa's life just got worse. Lisa being my character who was once a fair and became a Thasier. But the physical body isn't the worst of it all. The changes are, of course, drastic, but I do think that the shift from being a Meiwa, which is half energy, half physical, into purely physical would severely harm one's perception of the world. Would their soul also be affected? Part of it being removed and replaced? I'm sure that would be quite unpleasant. The magic they once were able to use is now gone, replaced with new magic that is either inherent or unlocked over time, instinctually. The Thasier would have to rely so much on instinct for the time following their metamorphosis. How to walk, how to eat, how to hunt. The most recent rendition of the Faeries and Thasier were renamed. Not because I didn't like the names that I'd chosen. Actually, I'm so used to them I still call them these original names. But because the names didn't mean anything, and I wanted them to. So the fair became the Aletheia. In Greek, Aletheia means a few things. Disclosure, revealing, unclosedness, the state of being not hidden, the state of being evident, factuality or reality. Aletheia are a race of energy physical beings with an emphasis on truth. Like their real-world folklore origins, but taken further. It's not that they can't lie, but that they won't. Their culture is based on telling the truth, not just in words, but in meaning. Omitting the truth or twisting words to make someone believe something that isn't true is just as much a lie as a blatant one. No falsehoods, no hidden meanings, the state of being not hidden. Doing trade or making treaties with the Aletheia is fairly straightforward. You know they would never betray you. And most know better than to betray the Aletheia. They enforce this virtue of theirs with zeal. They have many animal traits that their energy side helps to manifest into their physical bodies, and I'm no longer limiting it to bugs. Example for insects being wings, little claw feet, larger eyes, more than 6 limbs, etc. Fish, scale fins, tails, water breathing, birds, feathers, beaks, talons, wings, hollow bones. Their energy side manifests into a variable body type, through their individual taste. Their truth, their state of reality not being hidden, includes their personal ease within their form. They can metamorphosis when needed, but tend to choose their form once or twice and then stick with that for the rest of their life. This race can have many varied body types, but most are still compatible with each other, as they all lay eggs and share the same genetic basis. Instead of every Aletheia being at risk of their core being stolen, I made a core be something more of a Meiwa trait than an outright fairy one. But at this point, I think Aletheia are the only species of Meiwa that go through this transformation when they lose their core. And a core isn't something that every Meiwa gets. None of them are born with it. A core will manifest at some point throughout their lives. Usually this is during maturity, but it can be earlier or later depending on mental and environmental factors. Having a core makes you stronger than most other Meiwa that don't have one, but it also makes you at risk of being able to lose that power. It's a blessing, but one that can be taken away. A blessing as much as a curse for the Aletheia. Those that don't have a core aren't at risk to losing themselves, while those that have one are far more powerful, but also live their lives with that possibility. I have a fun tidbit that I don't know if I'll get around to anytime soon, so I'll share now. The dragons, that I call Vasilikos, are also Meiwa, the mix of energy and physical bodies, so they can also manifest cores. Just like the Aletheia, their bodies are extremely variable and can be modified, so a dragon in my world building is defined more by power and their soul than what they look like. Still, their more default form should resemble a dragon, at least a little bit. As for the Thasier, I have no idea where the word Thasier even came from. I don't think it ever meant anything. It's not a bad thing, I still do that plenty. The Thasiae are now called the Viuven, which means honed. Well, it doesn't really, but that's where the base of the name came from, so that's what it means for me. The idea behind it is that the race is honed for their purpose of being a hunter of the Aletheia. It is a word that goes well with sharp things, and the Viuven are now very sharp. I have some ideas for how these two connected races view each other. Aletheia, meaning truth, has an antonym, Lethe. So I think the Aletheia would call their transformed brethren Lethe as a derogatory term. Lethe means oblivion, forgetfulness, concealment, forgetting of being, concealment of being, which I think fits very well with how the Aletheia see the Viuven, and why they would choose a new name for themselves as a way to reject the degradation and form their own identity. I'm toying now with the idea that the Viuven would similarly give the Aletheia a sort of derogatory name, but 3 names are hard enough to keep track of. Plus, the Aletheia are what they're supposed to be striving for. They simultaneously hate the Aletheia and desire to regain the form of one. If I were to name them something only the Viuven use, as a slur, it would be something like blindness or arrogance, for which I would use the word onakos. But will I do that? Who knows? I'm still more used to calling them Thasiae and Fair in my head. It's just what I'm used to. But what you're used to changes as time goes on. So one day I will be more familiar with their new names than I ever was with the old. Thasiae, Viuven, Lethe. Fair, Aletheia, onakos. Now, where do the Aletheia live? In the Fae realm, of course. Well, something similar, anyways. They live on an island called Pexki in the Eastern Ocean. It is close to several other islands and mainlands. Their closest neighbor is the small island of Gurdu, which is nestled into a tiny inlet. Which is nestled into an inlet of Pexki. Gurdu is where most Viuven flee if they aren't interested in reclaiming what they lost, and even some that are. Most of the actual territory of Pexki is found on the other side of portals. I don't know that I necessarily want to lean into seasonal courts of Fae, but I think I would like to have different realms that follow different seasons and environments all housed within the same country. Step out of one portal where it's springtime into another filled with snow. From one where light is always shining to one where it is always night. Unlike most Fae stories, I think the realms will be much more interconnected, rather than distinct courts that all like to one-up each other and have petty disputes. I imagine that the Aletheia as a whole work together as one country. Not that they wouldn't have petty disputes and squabbles and power struggles, but it wouldn't at all be hidden. They recognize themselves as one country, and they all answer to the one in charge. Now, I don't think being an Aletheian would be very fun. I see classism being pretty at home there. They're honest about where you belong, and if you're at the bottom, you understand you belong there. But you're not at the bottom because you're born there. It's not stagnant. People move up or down in their status regularly, by strength or usefulness. The elite don't get to just lounge around and be rich. They have to be useful. Everyone has their job and place in society. The one on top isn't a bloodline. It's earned. And the classes themselves are seen on mostly equal footing, from soldier to farmer to politicians. If they have politicians, I don't know. Within each class is a hierarchy. Someone has to be at the top and someone at the bottom. They do probably have some sort of retirement that they earn, or they just never really age the same way we do. Just hit the end of their lifespan and die. That'd be interesting to explore. I wonder how they'd feel when someone takes their rank and pushes them down. Would it be jealousy, resentment, or an acceptance that humans wouldn't understand, accepting that the one above them belonged there? Would they believe in fate? In some higher power pulling the threads into place? Putting those deserving into rightful positions? Do they get time off? What would be the point of living in society if they didn't? So what would an Aletheia do with their time off? Travel? Within the realms of Pexki, of course. I don't know if I mentioned it, but Fae don't leave their realms. Originally it was because fairies made for such good alchemical ingredients, and they feared for their wings. But maybe that's still somewhat the case. Those that have cores likely never leave, or even get close to the borders. But also, the world outside Pexki is abhorrent to them. They constantly lie and deceive, and trying to interact with a world so fundamentally different is not easy. They do have trade with the outside world, some merchants who are allowed just inside or just outside the realms, perhaps some mixing of the races in a heavily guarded market. It's not without its risks, but the rewards of trade are worthwhile. Anyways, back to time off. What recreation would fairies get up to? A walk in the park? A flight through the forest? Drinking at a restaurant or playing some magic game I have no idea about? Are there fairy drugs? Fairy alcohol? Is there fae romance? Do they value family? Do they even have family? Do they usually prefer to spend time alone or in groups? Do they have art forms to do as hobbies? Would they have somewhere to display or perform art? Aletheia acting sounds like a very interesting art form. Is acting an approved form of lying? Are they allowed to perform as a character that isn't them? Is their history always written down accurately? Or can their view of truth be warped to include public perception? If everyone believes it to be true, does it make it true? Aletheians believe that the Lethe lose everything of themselves, and they don't deserve any consideration or mercy, that they're simply monsters acting on instinct with no remnants of their previous selves. But that's not the truth. It's just what they all believe to be the truth. So that's what I have on my fairies so far. Do you have fae in your world? If so, please share them. I'd love to hear your interpretations. Enjoy my world and share your own. Remember, joy doesn't have to come from something perfected. It can come in the process as well. See ya.